The Mental Brew podcast, sponsored by Sentinel Computers, your partner in IT security and support, keeping your business safe.
Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew podcast, and today we have Tony Regan with us. So Tony is a past intercounty hurler, current performance coach, working with teams, businesses, public speaking, a published author. I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. So Tony, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Dennis. Great to be with you.
Tony, so starting off, why do you do what you do?
Probably a roundabout way, Dennis, how I ended up where I'm at. I suppose from my interest and passion in sport, I always had a huge interest in terms of high performance and getting the best out of myself. And I suppose, in your teenage years and your 20s is about getting the best out of yourself. But as I've moved into my 30s and now my 40s, I get a real energy from getting the best out of others. And that's why I've probably ended up, in the area of coaching and particularly in the area of high performance coaching, both in businesses and sport as well, and get a real kick and a real enjoyment from it.
Brilliant. And I suppose just bringing you back, so you've obviously your own intercounty setups now still, and you were past playing. I suppose just starting off, are the challenges still the same for athletes, do you think, playing at that level, or has the game kind of gotten bigger with, the more exposure, obviously, we say the more professional elements that come with it now? So, like you look at even club level now, it's probably what intercounty could have been 10 or 15 years ago. It's gone so professional. I suppose, how have you seen the game evolve as a player, but now someone who's part of a coaching staff?
Oh, listen, mastery, there's changes in every single area. We could go through each of them individually. And again, I think it's down to people's interpretation. Like, pressure, is down to people's interpretation. So, do players feel more pressure now playing than they did in the noughties because of social media?
Yeah,
It all depends where people put their focus and attention on. And, I know a lot of players who, wouldn't bother a lot with apps and social media during the height of the season just to give themselves that kind of peace of mind and that break from, reading and then constantly involved in their sport, etc. But on the flip side, I think the coverage, I think the sports science side of it, the level of coaching, there's an awful lot of improvements that have happened there, and it's probably made it a more enjoyable environment in a lot of cases for players. I think to go back to my own career, there was probably a lot of training practices that were questionable. There was probably a lack of recovery between sessions.
yeah.
There was probably a lack of reflection on what's working and not working well. There was probably a lack of work in terms of developing leadership and developing good team cohesion within groups as well. And I think the science and the education on management teams and coaches and players around that, has improved drastically, and it has really helped create better environments for players and coaches and management to kind of flourish and thrive. And there's a long way to go in certain counties, obviously in certain
Mm.
organizations, but at least the conversations are starting to have, and things like well-being and things like high performance practices and things like recovery are now been spoken about more consistently and been practiced more consistently.
And looking back, like you had a brilliant career. Honors won, All Stars won, and this kind of fascinates me because I never played at a high level. I was a junior C player, and that was it if I was lucky, right? But when you're playing and you have these accolades and you have these achievements, are you able to take it in, or is it now the fact that maybe when players retire, they can look back and kind of get that greater sense of satisfaction? Like, is it hard to kind of get that when you're in it, or
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of my mindset and even people I work with, generally they move on quite quickly because you kind of have to, Dennis. I think if you get complacent or, you allow your ego to take over and you don't get back to work on the basics, very quickly your level of performance can drop, and that can lead to a number of consequences in terms of not being selected and been ultimately let go from teams or panels as well. And it's the same in a business setting as well. If we do get complacent and we don't remain kind of humble, around different aspects of our performance, well then we mightn't have that growth mindset mindset in terms of the next bit of improvement or the next bit of feedback, and we might have an inflated sense of self and an inflated sense of our importance and status. So, generally, even today, I don't look back on achievements and say, the teams I've worked with who've won All Irelands or the business teams have done really well. It's just down to me and a great role of my coach. And like,
Yeah.
there's too many variables in it. And I think I've been a cog in the wheel with multiple other people who've been absolutely excellent at what they do. And, the players and the staff and all those aspects. So, I think it's, very important to reflect that. And, any one success or any one failure isn't down to one person, and it's a team ethos I find both in business and sport. And I think it's important to stay balanced in terms of when you have success, it's to obviously enjoy it, but don't get too high around it too. That there's other things to accomplish and there's more work to done to be improved upon. And when you have failings and setbacks as well, it's important to not get too low around those things. And as I outlined in the book, maybe in chapter, I think 7, around optimism and pessimism. From a pessimistic point of view, sometimes when we have a setback, we can explain it by, making it very personal, and I was the fault for that failure and
Mm.
mistake or setback, and be really critical of ourselves and hammer ourselves for weeks on end, and maybe stay stuck and hopeless. Or we make it very pervasive around other aspects of our lives, and that one thing in our life that hasn't gone well on that day, we allow it to affect our relationships, either in business or outside of business, or in sport or outside of sport. And we maybe go around with a low mood, and
Mm.
we're not that nice to be around. And sometimes these setbacks, they are quite temporary rather than permanent. And there can always be a good performance the following day, or there can be always another opportunity to perform well in a presentation or an interview or meeting a new customer or another match or training session to perform in. So I think sometimes it's good to have a short-term memory on successes, and live in them, enjoy them for whatever number of days it is. But I think there's important to get back to reality too, and life goes on as well. And that's an important part of moving through life as well in a healthy and helpful way.
And you kind of said something there that piqued a kind of a memory for myself. So I think we've been in similar fields. I work with businesses as well, sports teams. I have the masters in exercise and sports psychology. And I was very fortunate enough while doing my masters, I got involved with all of the senior footballers as their sports psychology consultant, right? And brilliant experience in with Efi Fitzgerald, Peter Leahy, really good lads. But I can remember kind of going in green as you wouldn't believe, just starting out, you're still in college doing the stuff. But I remember results didn't go our way, and I can remember taking that really badly. Because you're dead right, in my role or our role, whatever you want to call it, cog in the wheel, because it's a big team, everyone has their roles to play. But I actually found myself withdrawing from, I suppose, doing what I wanted to do. Like I remember stepping back from doing a couple of workshops and looking back at it now, I kind of went into that low mood and maybe that fear of failure. In your role now, especially with the performance side of things, working with teams, just say you're with whoever, you've been with Limerick and whatever else, and there's a big game, we say Munster Championship, whatever it may be, and it's a bad result or in the league, whatever. Do you ever take that personally, kind of going, Jesus, is it down to a workshop I did, or is it down to one-to-ones I did? Like, how do you, I suppose, look at that? You kind of touched on it already, but even just in your role as a sports psychologist, because I know it'll be kind of practitioners listening.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I talk a lot about this in chapter 1 in terms of clarity versus confusion, and, learnings again from my 20s where, my lack of perspective, I suppose, in terms of, after defeat, a lot of my self-worth and self-esteem tied into the performance as an athlete, and,
Mm.
often going into depression for 2 or 3 months after losing the likes of an All-Ireland quarter-final or an All-Ireland final, because I didn't have that perspective.
Yeah.
I only maybe saw myself as an athlete, and people in multiple roles and playing multiple fields like we are. I think it's really important to have perspective on a daily basis that, although we want to do really well at what we do in terms of our work or role, it's not who we are essentially at the essence of who we are. And I think for people to understand that and understand their value system and other priorities in their life and other roles they play, that they are important to their family, they are important to their friends, they have other roles in society in terms of their community. And although you didn't have achievement on that day as a sports psychologist, with whatever the defeat was with Limerick, or for yourself in your own case, maybe multiple disappointments with Waterford and trying to navigate that. It doesn't define you as a good or bad psychologist, as I said, when things go good or bad, or you had a success or a failure. And I think it's to create that separation from your role as a sports psychologist to, go back into the home, and you might be a parent, you might be a son or a daughter, you might be a friend to someone, and it's to recognize that you can do that well, and you can have that sense of achievement there as well on a daily basis, and also your value system as well. Like, so, for me, a really important value for me every single day to show up with is honesty. And if I prepared as well as I could for those workshops that you mentioned, and I delivered in an honest and authentic way and gave it my best effort, and I prepared what I thought was the best I could at that point in time, well, then has to be a kind of a let go that you did all you could. And there'll obviously be reflection points after, was that the right theme and topic for that week? And, did I hit the right notes? And, there will be improvements maybe in terms of what you delivered, how you could deliver. But, again, going back to the success or failure of a sports team, it's not just down to one area, be it S&C or the nutrition or the manager or the coach or the sports psychologist or the players. There's so many variables in it, and, we're responsible for an area, but sometimes you have to let go of that disappointment around losing, and recognize that it's not all down to us, and personalizing it.
And do you get the same buzz or a similar buzz in your role now, would say within a high performance setup as part of that management team than you did when you were a player?
Uh,
Or is it
I
different?
think very similar emotions, like, when you're working with a player on the week of a match, and maybe slightly nervous or lacking a bit of confidence going into it. And, maybe after an hour conversation, you can see the weight lifting off them. There's a lightness to him or her, and you go out and see them perform to, close to their potential on a Sunday, and the team in that case as well. Geez, there's a massive buzz off it and a massive kind of enjoyment. And, when you think of great moments, like I still, can go back into, Tipperary in 2016, hitting 229 or something in All Ireland final against Kilkenny, and just the couple hours after it with the players and management, and just the joy and enjoyment of the conversations and the journey we've been on. And after multiple tough years for them in terms of losing semi-finals and finals, and not getting over the line and doubting themselves whether they would, there was a huge sense of satisfaction for all the players and management and backroom team around that. And the emotion, I suppose, after Ballygunner getting an injury time goal to beat
Yeah.
Ballyhale, I still get goosebumps thinking about it, and a great joy, and just an appreciation and gratitude to, been in those moments and been
Yeah.
part of that journey. And, the 8 or 9 months prior to building up to that moment were really, really enjoyable as well, and the relationships that you form as a group. So, yeah, absolutely, Dennis. It's just a joy to be, at the seat of these teams and been involved with people who are high performers in many aspects of their lives as well, and improve me as a person as well as improve me as a practitioner too.
Yeah, you've said a couple of things there now. A couple of, even when you were talking with the pressure, obviously the red to blue stuff's coming there. We're both red to blue practitioners. You've obviously mentioned values and relationships. Um, what's the most valuable thing that you've gotten out of this was just GA in general, whether it be as a player, whether it be someone's working in as part of a backroom team or whatnot. What's the most valuable thing you've gotten from the GA?
I think the friendships, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think, like, I just feel very lucky that I walked into a GA club at 6 or 7 years of age, and to think what transpired from that is
Yeah.
just absolutely amazing. Do you know what I mean? And I'm talking about, friendships with all my club mates just at a deeper level, thankfully going into county setups and still meeting lads, on a daily basis that you might have played under 14 or 16 with or under 21 or senior, and just been able to strike up a conversation and have a laugh over a training session, a bus journey, a
Yeah.
win or a loss, and the crack that was had. And to think that, you went on all-star trips to Singapore's and, team holidays to China and, South Africa and all the fun and engagement around those things. It's just been some hell of a journey. And, there's been absolutely tough times as well. Don't doubt me on that. Like between, getting dropped from a team, getting dropped from a panel,
Yeah.
but on the dole in my 20s, trying to navigate, different personal relationship challenges as well. There was a lot of tough times and challenges been in county hurler as well as, having my personal life as well.
Yeah.
But sport has just given me so much back, and I often say that I couldn't ever repay my club for what they've done for me around Newcastle, and it's just been, so many life skills that have been promoted in me through sport in terms of, being able to communicate well, being able to deal with setbacks, been becoming more resilient,
Yeah.
building friendships with people, commitment, punctuality, discipline. There's so many great traits that sports kind of awakens in you and gets you to repeat and practice regularly that can serve you so well in so many different areas.
You kind of answered my next question, all right, right? You're a parent. I'm a new parent as well. My son's only one, and I've mentioned in a few episodes. But I'm originally from a teaching background. So I've moved from teaching kind of into the performance area. I would have been involved like with coaching GA since I've been 18. Lucky enough to be involved in really high level setups and whatnot as part of teams in various roles, right? But what I've seen in this was schools over the last few years is you talk to people, there's less and less people or less and less students, boys or girls, playing sport. So, like, how important is sport, I suppose, to your kids or to kids in general from what you've seen? Like, what can it give them that necessarily, mightn't be gotten at home in some instances or, supplement what's going on at home as well?
Yeah, listen, I think it plays such a far-reaching role, and I think our government are probably beginning to understand the effect and impact of it. And you can see that in the investment in terms of sports capital around all the different projects, and the infiltration of a PE curriculum and a well-being curriculum in our secondary and national schools per se. And you take it from a physical aspect point of view, obesity is obviously a massive challenge,
Yeah.
and Ireland is probably a bit too high on that in terms of European scale. I don't know where we're coming in per capita, but the physical movement side of it and getting 30 to 60 minutes a day, GA and other sporting organizations play a huge role in that. You look at some of the pillars of well-being in terms of engagement and flow states, sport alive and sad in people, the relationship side of it and social connection. Again, you're hitting other aspects of well-being around that, giving people meaning and purpose on a daily basis. They have something to look forward to, training session, meeting up with friends, a game the weekend, talking about building up to the game, talking after the game,
Yeah.
the crack of training sessions, and developing all those movement and coordination skills and, self-esteem and self-confidence and building confidence in young people that makes them feel confident as well. So the achievement that you can get from, winning, mastering a skill, speaking up in a team environment and developing those communication skills, presenting skills, leadership skills.
Mm.
It's you could go on and list 100 things, Dennis,
Yeah.
and I think it is invaluable in terms of, so many people I would say in our club have moved from different counties, be it Limerick, Waterford, Dublin, Connemara even into our club as well. And
Yeah.
it's given them a place where they feel, safe, where they belong. There's a sense of connection. It's integrated their kids into the community, and it's given them a circle and a network both at adulthood and childhood to, create really meaningful relationships and have a sense of purpose together. So, yeah, I think sport is just a powerful transformational thing when it's done in the right way and the right age grades in terms of development and winning and those aspects at the right time, it can be very transformational for coaches, adults, people, and children as well. And I'd even reference how the GA has expanded in terms of healthy clubs and
Yeah.
aspects like that are so important. And GA for all, we do it in our own club as well. And I know I'm not just talking about GA. I think it's really inclusive environment now that clubs are trying to create across the board in multiple sports,
Yeah.
and it's great to see. And only 1 or 2% will probably make it in GA at intercounty level. Soccer, rugby is probably around those percentages as well. So it should be about attracting people into sport, retaining them and developing them, whatever role that be it a player, be it a coach, administrator, chairperson,
Yeah.
groundskeeper, fundraiser. I think there's so many things that, clubs need support around, but also can provide great opportunities for people to develop in so many facets as well.
And obviously, we'd say we class yourself as a high performer based on what you've done. We'd say on the field and off the field. But even going back to the younger self, I suppose how or what was instilled in you, or what did you see in yourself that kind of got you determination, to progress from team to team to team to get eventually where you are as a senior player, because obviously you'd see it, and I would have seen it as coaching. Seen some fantastic, maybe athletes or talented players, but they get to a certain age and they just disappear. And like the talent was literally dripping off them, like they were unbelievable. But I suppose looking back at yourself, and this was that reflection piece that you mentioned, what did you have, bar that you obviously had the athleticism as an athlete and everything else, but I suppose what did you have that little bit extra to help you get, I suppose, to where you got to?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I'd consider around this. Very fortunate the environment I grew up in, and the system, if that's the right word, around us. So, dad was director of sport in UCG for 40 years. So I got exposed to role models, we'll say, who showed the enjoyment of sport to me, the importance of, progressing and participating and being part of a team and teamwork and those aspects of it. So, seeing them apply themselves in terms of their work ethic, their dedication, their willingness to practice. You could go up to Dangan sports field and seeing a lot of them outside of training, practicing their shooting, practicing their running, practicing different techniques, in the gym, the same thing. And I think that kind of rubbed off me in terms of that work ethic is so important. So, I don't know how much talent I was born with or any sports person is born with. I think a lot of it is down to your attitude, your work ethic, and your environment. So the other things that are in my environment, I suppose I got exposed to really good coaches at a young age, both in my club, in my school, and the likes of Liam Salmon was a Gaelic football coach who, was way ahead of his time. In
Yeah.
terms of his methodologies and practices, and then the hurling side of it in school as well. The likes of Jerry Dempsey, Tom Nolan, who had been experienced and exposed to All Ireland winning teams and All Ireland winning practices
Yeah.
as well. So very fortunate, and then to get into the Galway Academy at 14 again. Wonderful coaches, Jim Bishop, Damien Coleman, massive head of the Galway Academy for 20 odd years, and just a powerful influence on my life. And then to get into the minor setup, John Hardy, man, and same with the under 21s with him, and then on to the seniors with him as well. Just a massive positive role model in my life, and Connor Hayes, and I could go through so many multiple people, Eamon O'Shea. I was very lucky where my demographic was, the coaches I exposed to,
Yeah.
and the 1,000 hours they put into me as well. And I brought an attitude that was probably open-minded to using all the resources at my disposal, whether, I had a certain amount of athletic ability, but I really tapped into how can nutrition improve that? How can gym and S&C improve that? How can a running coach improve my speed? The hurling side of it, trying to get better at that, the mindset side of it. So I think having that vulnerability that I never had all the answers, and using, what was in front of me and the resource in front of me to, try and get better, even 1% on an aspect for a whole year,
Mm.
I think helped me to progress in those environments and get a little bit better each year. And, you stack that year and year, and, you can develop any competency and any skill in yourself and any trait in yourself if you're vulnerable enough to keep trying and progressing that way.
That's brilliant. I do this. I have my next question now is just from based on what you said there. It's a really selfish question for myself more than anything. As a father, right? You talked about their role modeling. Being around people to help you as an athlete. I suppose, what do you want your own kids to see in yourself that they can take into life to succeed?
Yeah, I suppose the three most important values for me in my life at the moment are around honesty, caring, and integrity. So, I try to show them as much as possible to my kids at home in terms of caring for them and showing care to other people and being interested in other people. Being honest and open in terms of my opinion and views and things. And, whether that's right or wrong, that's up to other people to decide. And, putting an honesty of effort into, the tasks I commit to, whether that's housework, whether it's making a meal for them, whether it's, healthy practices in terms of how I train and the lifestyle I lead, and, the importance of fresh air and outdoor movement, and then involved in sports and other activities. That'd be an important thing to role model to my kids as much as possible. And, contributing to the groups you're in, contributing to your community. My parents give an awful lot back to the community in terms of sport and charity work and raising money for the school and stuff like that. So, anything I can help out in terms of community involvement, it's very rare I'd say no, because some people give so much back to me that it's important that we've adult leaders and parents in that frame of mind too, that you're giving back and trying to help people on their journey as well.
That's an incredible answer. In fairness, now, I suppose with that, right? I was it's something that's on my mind, and again, I would have mentioned this in previous episodes, but um, like reflection. So reflection can be hard. So this is from my own point of view, where you really have to look at things and kind of go, yeah, I've I'm not doing what I could be doing, and I suppose the biggest thing there, like I want Donnchadh to see, an active dad, a healthy dad, which, being honest, at the moment isn't really happening. So that's my goal now for 2025, is for him to see that and for him to mimic it. And um, I came across a podcast before, and one of the best questions I ever saw was, to the guest was, "What is the best thing in the world to you?" And he gave it from his lens, like what it was. And I remember thinking about it, and if you'd asked it to me 6 months ago, or not even 6 months ago, if you asked me 2 years ago, I would have given a completely different answer to what I give now. So mine now is all about Donnchadh. It's all about what he sees, all about what can kind of shape him. How do you deal with the challenge then to be providing in terms of, we say, a business, Tony O'Regan, the business, because you could be involved with an intercounty team or teams, you could be involved with club team or teams, plus then building the business in terms, getting clients outside of sport. So you could be on the road to, say, to Dublin with a business on a Monday, you could be, training that night. How do you kind of get the balance right then, where you're kind of going, yeah, I want to provide for the family, but I want to see the family and make sure they see that I'm around and whatnot.
Yeah, that's hugely important to me, and I think it comes down to your values and your priorities, Dennis. So, take for instance, health and family are two really important values to me. So, if I neglect my own health, I'm not going to be at the best for my family. So,
Yeah.
rather than thinking I have to go to the gym or I have to go for a run or I have to exercise, for me, it's exercising that value. And the 30-minute walk, the 10-minute meditation, exercising at a more intense level via gym or running,
Mm.
that for me is going to, have multiple transfers in terms of I perform better at work, I'm in better mood for my family, which is going to help. I'm going to be able to navigate all those demands and priorities in a little bit better. So, every kind of day I have a non-negotiable. There's going to be, probably 30 to 60 minutes I'm going to do there around my health, and that can be broken up into two or three of those practices that I mentioned. And the simple thing of walking every day for an hour might be 25 minutes walking the buggy with my daughter to her childminders, and
Yeah.
I'll walk back over then at 3 o'clock to collect her, and that may be another 15 minutes. So I have a half an hour ticked off there in terms of movement and out in daylight and fresh air. So I'm connecting my value
Yeah,
of health and my family in the same sequence in terms of, I'm moving and my daughter's with me in the buggy and we can connect and relate to each other in that way and we can have conversations and laughs and it's just a lovely 30-40 minute
yeah,
segue that we have every day. So yeah, I do have really high busy days in terms of been away with a company for the day and that can absolutely happen. But I think I try to give back in terms of maybe working from home the other 70% of the
yeah,
week. And I'm there for those important moments, as in breakfast time and those important moments, an hour or two before bedtime as well, on those non-busier days in terms of working from home. So I schedule a lot of my one-to-ones during the time frame of maybe 10 to 3 o'clock every day. And
yeah,
between that then is kind of family time from, 4 to 6 and, 6 or 7 in the morning to 9 in the morning as well. So I feel I'm very lucky to have that privilege of having that time with them and prioritizing them. And, obviously the weekends in our role, we can be on the sidelines or
mm,
going to matches as well. So it's trying to just get that balance at the weekend as well to have that quality time with the whole family and, scheduling things with your wife as well, to make that work and make sure that there's time for us as well. So don't always get that right, and it's always a constant work on in terms of improving different aspects of it. But that's the intention there, and I'm trying to work towards that as best I can.
that's brilliant. I'll actually listen back to this myself now and I'll take notes. There's definitely stuff I can kind of take from this chat so far. I just want to jump in and kind of focus on the practitioner piece, and then we'll get to your book. You see it over your shoulder, the MVP. Um, and I suppose I kind of told a few people you were coming on, and I kind of got a few questions from people in the field. So the first one, and this is what I'm actually looking for myself. So, you know, I set out with say even red to blue. So set out red to blue, working with a team, try and make that workshop as interactive as we can rather than just death by PowerPoint. But how do you bring that onto the field then, where it's not just say not even ticking a box, but you say, okay, the workshop is nearly separate to what's happening in the field. Like, how do you bring the I suppose the talk, the actions, the intent behind what's done in your workshops onto the field? Like, I suppose, do you come to the training with scenarios for the coaches that they can implement? Are they heavily involved in this in the sessions? What way does it work? Because I'm guessing you're not obviously not going doing the workshop and then taking the training session, obviously. But how do you get that transfer from that room onto the field where it can kind of get that 1% improvement?
Yeah, no, great point, Dennis, and I think that's ultimately where you want to get to, and the buy-in from the coaches and players around it. So things that I've seen have worked well in the past is that you've complete alignment or with the coaches around what we're delivering here and the impact of it, and they're sitting in on that workshop and they're understanding it. So maybe the first night or two. You're maybe leading it in the session, whatever that might be. You have a reset routine between water breaks, or you're working on some scenario within the game, and you visualize that first with the players and rehearse it with the players that way, and then they walk through it and work on it. So, I've often delivered it myself and gone on the training pitch with them to get them working on it and get the coaches comfortable with it and the players working on it. But then after that, I want them to take it over and feel
Mm,
empowered. So some of the leadership group might take aspects of it where one of the leadership group or two of the leadership group are working on the positive communication reinforcement when they see something done well. There might be other areas of the leadership group that are working on the intensity of the session and making sure that we're, working really intently and really intensely at the right time. But then when we're dialing down the intensity, there's other parts of the leadership group or the coaches coming in with breath work and body language triggers to kind of reset ourselves between drills.
yeah,
So that's how I kind of make sure that it becomes part of every session. We're working on the psychological element, and the environment is informed by that with the coaches and management and players and backroom staff, that they kind of understand why we're doing a breathing routine, why we're doing self-talk, why we're doing visualization, why we're working on commitment or communication, and how we can all do it. So, that's the vision of what you're trying to get
Yeah,
to. Do we always get to that? Absolutely not. But that's what you're trying to infiltrate, and you're hoping that players, management, and coaches then would use this on a daily basis in their personal life, whether it's from
yeah,
a work perspective or they're going in making a presentation in work or they're meeting a new client. They use some of these tools to inform them in terms of being clear in their decision making, been really aware of emotionally, are they in a good space and they present and calm rather than anxious and nervous, and you'll be hoping a lot of these performance psychology principles can help them navigate not just sport challenges but life challenges around that.
and another question, and I suppose I would have had this question as well. So the field in Ireland is growing. Like there's some unbelievable people in it, like yourself included, in college in Waterford, Ciara Lasty, Kevin McManaman, Emma Saunders, really brilliant practitioners, right? Obviously, Karen Kurt. So, like, just for talk's sake, say you come into a team or I come into a team after you and you're after winning an All Ireland. To me, at the moment, I'd look at that and go, "Oh Jesus!" Like that would be very daunting. Kind of going, you know, obviously now it's a cog. We kind of highlighted that, but like at the same time, whatever was presented in that area must have been really good because it's kind of part of the package that helped to win an All Ireland or whatever it may be. For practitioners kind of following up, we say big names like yourself or whatever else down the line, I suppose what advice would you give them, I suppose, to not to maybe have that issue with imposter syndrome, kind of going, oh my God, I'm following Tony here now, and Tony's been around years, he's played into counties, won All Irelands with teams, whatever it may be. What advice would you give them?
You learn something from that in terms of how you're interpreting that situation. So, you know, just because a team wins in All Ireland is everything done brilliantly to a high level. No, and I think we can sometimes attach that to the get too attached to the outcome that everything must be great because the team won an All Ireland, and everything must be poor because the team didn't win an All Ireland. And there's probably 6 or 8 teams in, just took football, for example, that can win an All Ireland every year. So, they're doing an awful lot of things right, and there's probably 1 or 2 things as practitioners we can help them improve on. And same with the team that wins as well. There's definitely always areas that we can grow and improve on, and it's important to challenge the environment around that too. So, if I was going in replacing the likes of Caroline, which I did for Limerick for 1 year, I would try to find out from the players and management what they enjoyed here, what they liked, disliked, what was working well, and try to retain some of that. And then you can add your own flavors to things in terms of I can't present the way Dennis presents, and I can only present the way I present
Yeah,
and the way I understood the material and what I feel would work best. So, bringing your own authentic self to it and backing, what you did with Waterford or what you did with a club team, it's not much different just because they're labelled a county team and they've had success. So, I think it's your interpretation of things as well, and just backing what you can improve and backing what you've got from feedback from the team in terms of what they're doing well and maybe the gaps that are there that you notice from observation, but also that from your own studies and experience as well.
how do you deal with difficult conversations with a coach or manager? Hypothetically, no, obviously, but like you're just say I'm the manager of County X, and I just berate the people around me nonstop. I'm negative or I'm narcissistic, and you just see this and it's like massive red flags. How do you have that conversation? I would have come across that in a team I would have done at some stage in my career, but I found that really hard because I was kind of going in my head going, well, this is the boss. Like this is, someone who could just go, okay, Dennis, you're gone, you're out the gap. Like how do you, and I think I've gotten better for it, but how do you kind of deal with that situation where I suppose the team comes before that, but how do you deal with that difficult conversation with difficult personality?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of come first off from a place of kind of curiosity with that coach, and how open is he to coaching, and also what's his perception of reality. So if you just took that theme of communication, and from our training we'd say there's positive communication, there's negative communication, there's instructional communication or task communication. And most coaches I come across, they are, actually into the psychology side of it and how do I communicate better and connect with better. So it's trying to saying, right, are you open to me maybe just observing a couple of sessions, looking at how your communication, your tone, your body language with the group is, and, maybe reflecting back to you what you did really well around that and what I observed maybe when it looked like you were under pressure and you reacted in this way. And you often go back to that John Wooden study when they looked at his communication. I think like 10% was positive and about 80% instructional, and maybe, 5% or less negative, or if there was that in it at all. And, I think it's a really good study to highlight to coaches that, there's many different ways we can challenge players, but, it's trying to do it in a positive and instructional way rather than, negative and damaging. And, if you were to frame a bit of his communication in terms of what that percentage was and just what was his experience and what was going on for him internally in terms of what was making him frustrated or angry towards that player, and how that corresponds in terms of his body language or his communication and how that might be perceived by the player. I think you're in a really good zone with him
Mm.
then in terms of, you're here to support him rather than undermine him.
Yeah,
And you're here to be a critical friend that will get the best out of him as well, which will help him be successful and the team be successful. I think you kind of have to have that partnership with them and get and closeness with them to, have those difficult
yeah,
conversations, and, obviously wanting him to reflect back to you too, what you could do better as a practitioner
absolutely. Yeah.
to support him and what he needs more from you in terms of supporting him and the management team. And, that's where you kind of want to get to with your dialogue and that, open and honest communication with each other to build trust.
Now we kind of come to uh, the book, have it ordered, waiting for delivery. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I bought it was looking at the not the index, but your chapters, and basically the headings where they were described. I'm kind of going, this is something I could definitely use. Like that was the reason I kind of purchased that book and went, yeah, getting that book now, looking forward to getting it. I suppose before we get into the nuts and bolts of it and you explaining, I suppose, the various aspects of it, right? I want to talk to you the challenge of writing a book. So is it something that you were approached to do and then you get a deadline, or is it something that you just kind of start putting together as a passion project and it turned into the book? Like how like I suppose what I'm trying to ask you is the pressure around it in terms of deadlines, the pressure around it trying to get to a certain level of quality. Like what was like to deal with kind of getting that together?
Yeah, I think the idea probably originated prior to COVID, which is, I don't know, at this stage, it feels like 6 or 7 years ago. I was sitting on a couch with Jerry Hussey and his wife Miriam at one stage, and we're kind of looking at the next 12 months. And I definitely felt there was a book in there that I wanted to write from just my gut and intuition. And
Yeah,
started putting a few bits together in terms of, reflecting on the teams I'd worked with and some of the things I'd learned from the great coaches and managers, etc., etc., and sent off one or two, maybe 1,000 word or 2,000 words to, sports journalists, and they came back and were very complimentary and
mm,
said maybe you should go deeper on this or tweak this. And, probably only did 2 to 3 pieces like that, and didn't know where to go after that, Dennis, been honest. And then, COVID opened up and just got stuck into the work again and it went out of my radar. And then my good friend Jerry Hussey wrote his first book, and loved reading that and learned so much from it. And and Jerry, had a has a very interesting life in terms of all the aspects he's involved in, running his own business and been involved in sport at high level, etc. So said if he could manage the time to do it, I surely can as well. And he gave me the number for Elaine O'Neill, who's a writing coach, and I kind of sent on an idea to her that I'd like to write a book on this aspect, and she asked me to flesh out, why I wanted to write a book,
yeah,
who's the reader I wanted to help. And eventually we got to a point where that was a bit clearer, and then she said, "Yeah, I'll support you." And she had a program at the time, from idea to manuscript, which was a 12-week program, and
fast.
I think she had like 5 or 6 sessions with me. So every 2 weeks I'd have to produce 2 chapters for her, and she'd review them and send them back to me and tell me what to improve on and get better on. And she would have given me a template of how to write those chapters as well, which was helpful. Because I didn't know how to write an introduction, I didn't know what to put
Yeah.
in the main body, and I didn't know how to summarize it really because it's not something I ever done before. So I was just a very real novice around it. So thankfully, we over the 12 weeks we put those 10 chapters together, and she came up with the idea of the mindset match, and we're competing between one side of our whatever personality or skill set to the other, which might be,
Yeah.
self-doubt versus confidence, and we're on that continuum, and other obstacles we would have faced, I suppose, both in our personal life and professional life and sports challenges would be around other aspects where, maybe you're lacking clarity and you're confused around how to improve, or you're confused around how to move forward. And that's how it kind of originated. And then from there, I got a couple of emails for publishers and sent them off to probably three at the time off the top of my head, and had a call in and a response straight away. I think from Hachette, Kira Dorley was my main publisher, and she said, "I really like the content of the book, and we'd love to work with you." And signed a contract with them, and over the course of 12 or 15 months, then that would have been over and back probably on a weekly basis to edit this and tweak this, and could you add a bit more content here and there, and more stories here, or another exercise here, or reference here. And yeah, all in all, it probably took about 2 years to
Wow.
bring to that kind of closure and go on pre-order, etc. So yeah, no, I'm delighted how it finished up. I was probably naive in terms of the length of time. I thought it'd have all done in 3 or 4 months. And
Yeah.
in the meantime, we've had 2 kids, and it's been juggling all that as well. So
Jesus, fair
yeah,
play. That's some going.
it's been great. And yeah, another lesson is there ever a right time to do anything? And so yeah, we can be waiting for the perfect time to write a book, or put out a new business program, or whatever it might be. And from my experience, there's never a right time. You just kind of have to go for it.
And would you, I know I might, it's a bit soon to ask you this now, but would you write another book, do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it's crossed my mind in the last week or two that it'd be lovely to do something maybe around the team aspect and the most valuable team, and how to create that in terms of 10 chapters as well. So you're probably first to hear that, Dennis, but it's probably something that's on my mind in terms of maybe doing that in the future.
Yeah, because something like that would be class. And I suppose what's your favorite chapter from the book?
I think different things resonate with different people. I think when I look back at my own career, maybe being confused in terms of what my value was to society, and what I valued, and what success was for me, and what happiness was for me. I think chapter one is just the foundation of everything, and working with people on an individual basis. I think that's just so important to highlight, because if you don't know who you are and what you stand for and what your belief system and value system is, and what you really desire in life, it's very hard to move forward in terms of overcoming your fears, in fear versus courage chapter two, or developing that challenge mindset that will help you to overcome other challenges, or balance and intensity versus recovery, or doubt versus confidence. I think getting that foundation right in chapter one allows then to unleash more aspects of your potential in terms of the other chapters. So I think if I had clarity on that in my early 20s,
Mm.
it wouldn't have been 28 before I kind of got the best out of myself in terms of a sporting context, and it might have been till 32 before I realized what career I should have been in.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, having that reflection in terms of clarity versus confusion, definitely one of my favorites, and probably a lot of challenging questions in there for people that you mightn't have the answers for right now, but
Mm.
at least you're poking the bear in terms of yourself, and asking those deeper questions around why am I really here, and what's my purpose and motive.
One thing that strikes me from talking to you, and as I said, I've got loads from this so far, but like, um, I think you're a real deep thinker. There's a lot of substance to what you're saying. I suppose what shaped you in terms of, we'll say, who you are now, because you've mentioned your value system. You've mentioned it a lot actually. Um, when did that come really important to you to live by your values? Because like I suppose if you're looking at myself, to be honest, there's times where I'd be very laid back and I just kind of coast with things. So my value system, I would never be thinking, oh, this is against my value system. I just try to get on with whatever else, and that's probably to my own detriment, to be honest. Um, I'm just wondering, I suppose, when did this kind of form for you? Is it something that you know, was again come from home, seeing your parents, role models, or is it something that you would have developed through life based off circumstances, based off interactions, based off time, essentially?
Yeah, listen, I think what was modeled into me at a young age, you obviously pick up on a lot of that in terms of, my parents and their honesty and their work ethic, their respect for other people, the care they showed for others, been involved in the community. So, they're probably ingrained into you from a very young age.
Mm,
And manners, please, and thank you, and yeah, that sort of respect for other people. So, when I really, got ingrained into them, I suppose probably some stage in my 30s when you're, after completing a master's, you're looking at other things in terms of leadership development, emotional intelligence, life and executive coaching were kind of other qualifications I picked up along the way. And if I'm going to coach, I kind of have to know, internally what I stand for and what I want to be authentic around and what want to be open around. And, you look at the best leaders, what do people look for in people authenticity.
yeah.
And, that for me is your values and how you communicate them, how you live them, how you model them, how you behave them. So I had to come crystal clear on, what I wanted to stand for as a coach, and they can be tweaked and evolved, based on, my age and my profile or where I'm going working. But I think they're fairly consistent and fairly constant. I would say over the last 5 or 6 years in terms of my priorities and trying to live them more deeply and authentically. And when I do that, then I can speak from a place of more conviction, more commitment, more integrity and more authenticity, and it's trying to, live from there on a consistent basis. And I think that has probably freed me up to be less concerned of what other people think, be less concerned of the outcome, and more focused on things that are in my control. And I think it's brought me closer to people as well in terms of being more authentic around being caring and more honest and more respectful and having more integrity as well. And I think I'm able to generate closer relationships with people because of that. So they've been a very powerful and transformational thing for me. And I think, organizations and people who lead through a value-based approach, I can connect to that straight away. I
Yeah.
can work with those people straight away, and I feel there's a richness around our conversations and a richness around those environments that, probably light me up. And I feel I belong in those environments. So, there's probably a two-way facet to that. There's my own, but also, reconnecting and relating and integrating to other people's values and how they lead through a value-based approach, is very important to me with the people I work with.
It's brilliant. Because the thing that got, I suppose, I had a light bulb moment there. So I would have done the executive coaching as well. I remember I did it. It was actually COVID. We did it online. And it was great, really, really, really good. But I remember they mentioned emotional intelligence. We touched on it in the course. I remember kind of reading, going, grand, but it didn't hit me. It was just like grand. And then the more I looked at it, I ended up basically becoming certified in it. And you know, I try now to form relationships based off that. And for me, in my career to date, I suppose the most important thing and probably the thing that's gotten me where I am, and I'm not saying anywhere, but I'm just saying got my jobs, from maybe step one to step two to step three, whatever it may be, is definitely building those personal relationships. And even within school now, when you're talking to students, the one thing I stress to all of them is try and build relationships, whether it be with your teacher, whether it be with your classmates, because we can look at things very black and white, and I would be very black and white, but it's still building the relationship where someone can come to you for help, and as you said there, show that empathy and kindness. But it's something that someone will never forget. So I actually did kind of a workshop with some of my students. I remember asking them, I was like, look, has anyone ever seen anyone being bullied? And they said, yeah. And then I could, this student that was being bullied, would you talk to him? No, not really. And I was like, why not? And they couldn't really answer. I goes, what if it was you? You were being bullied, and then someone just passed you and look, Dennis, how's it going? You don't have to like him, you don't have to be friends with him. But it was like that one hike could completely change their day, their outlook at school. And all of a sudden, you're just trying to form that little bit of relationship. And obviously, you'll go in deeper levels and whatnot. But that's definitely something that has been a light bulb moment for me, is the importance of relationship building, especially now in the business we're in, to try and get, the most sort of, business people in front of you or teams in front of you. So yeah, that's definitely resonated. We've come to the end there now, Tony. So I've got five quick fire questions for you. And then we're done and dusted. So I suppose, what's your greatest achievement to date?
Um, Getting married and becoming a father, I think.
Okay. What has the best bit of advice you've been given?
Lead from the heart.
For you, what's the best thing in the world?
Waking up in the morning and having a healthy family.
What are your two main goals for 2025?
Share my book to as many people in the world as possible and help make a difference in any of the teams or organizations that I'm a part of.
And last question, are you a man for regret?
No, I think I've improved around that aspect drastically and tend to focus on what I have in my life and also what I'm looking forward to having in my life in the future.
Brilliant. Tony, this has been, the hour has actually flown. The hour has flown by. I've enjoyed it immensely. I just want to say thanks so much for coming on. For anyone listening, where can people find out more about you?
Thanks, Dennis, yourself. I think you have a real gift for questions and opening people up. So I really enjoyed this hour with you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. My website is tonyogregan.ie and all my social platforms are Tony O'Gregan. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, they'd be probably the most common places that people will find me. Yeah.
And your book is for sale everywhere, certain places.
No, everywhere. Yeah, it's on Linktree, so you can get it on audio and Spotify, and you can also get it in all the book stations, Eason's and Bookstation and Kenny's and online as well. So yeah, absolutely, it's available everywhere as far as I know.
I can't wait to get it, and when I do, I will put a kind of my own thoughts and reviews up in LinkedIn, and I'll tag in that. But really, really looking forward to getting it. And thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, and we'll have you on again soon.
Good man, Dennis. Best of luck for the year ahead.
Thank you.